with the language, this is what we keep trying to emphasize to people, that the language is alive. Yeah, it's an evolving language and it's alive. So it's it's got vitality and it's vibrant. So you have to kind of keep up. The language books the words do get updated. This is why we encourage people to join like the Telegram language groups so that they can be updated. Join our Telegram group so that you can get the links to the other groups, okay, as well. But you have to use what you've got until you get the new or updated version. So you said, I see in the language group some of the wording is a little different. That's right, because there is a strategy and a process, as the master has explained to us over the years in teaching the language, that in breaking the spell and breaking you from the language that was used to cause you to be in the spell, the words changing means that if you try to remember the word, you will go to a previous misbatia, or as you say, Nuwapic word, instead of going to, say, the English. You see what I mean? So, for example, we used to say, I'll give you two examples. Like you used to say, if you were saying, how are you? You would say, Akhay, Adir, Antak, if you're speaking to a male, yeah? And that would be, how are you? Or Antat, if it's a female, right? Now, it's in the word for how, it's not going to be Akhay anymore, Akhay anymore. It's now Khayef, you see? So it's like you would disregard the English completely because you will only go back to the previous Nawapic word. So eventually, you have no need to have it in your mind at all. Another word might be like that, okay? Which used to be that. We used to say deek, if you remember that far back. And over the years, you see, I can't even remember any other words but like deek, and then it became pafef, you see? So it's a process and a strategy to get you not to even think in English anymore, you see? Because you go back to the previous Nawapic word as opposed to like doing that kind of correlation between, like when people are learning the language, this is one of the mistakes that we make in terms of you think of a word in English and then try and find a Nawapic or the Misbatia word for that word. So there's a double step or an association where you're always associating it with English rather than just go into the language, you see. So when children are born into speaking a language, or if you remember how you learned English, you didn't know any other words in another language that you're translating from. So you would just build up your vocabulary just based on the language itself, not trying to associate it, because even when you try to translate using transliteration, I'll explain what transliteration is in a minute, but you will just learn words like mama, dada, and then you build your vocabulary, and after you just start speaking it, you don't get a book or try to associate another language to the equivalent, because when you do that, you try to do things like in transliteration, like you would literally think of, let's say, a sentence or a word or something you want to say in English, and then you will try and assemble the words to make the sentence, which doesn't always work out. So when I said transliteration, it's like in this book. Let me see if I can find a better example. Okay, any of these, like the Book of Memory or the Book of Divine Love. In fact, let's use the Book of Divine Love. So, Pa Safa Shalal Ashuk, yeah, the Book of Divine Love. So, in here, for example, you won't be able to probably see it from there, but you have 3 columns, right? And if we go from left to right, you will see the actual script, right? The Miss Batia script. So you should learn to read the script, and then we'll have the transliteration, and then you'll have the actual Miss Batia. So you can look at the three. So you look at the script, you look at what the script is being translated into, then you look at the English. So for example, it will say, Lama antkum safuflia pa re hum safufa jakum. And even this might even have been updated in terms of some of the words, right? But it says, when you all look towards the sun, he looked at you all, right? But that's what I mean by, so you got to basically learn the language on its own merit by itself and try to avoid the association from English. But I know that's hard because, okay, another good example, like you start off learning a language with the building blocks, right? So you learn like the alphabet, all right? We say the harfat. And then the alphabet forms words, yeah? So let's say you did A, B, C, D, then you now know that D, A, D is dad, yeah? And then you pronounce dad. And that's it. You don't associate with anything. So instead of saying A in English, and then you try and say the equivalent to A is A, and in Nuwapic you have different sounds or harufat for, say, the letter A, because the way you pronounce it is different, okay? So I'm basically saying, instead of saying B in English and then saying the equivalent in Nuwapi, it's just better to just learn as opposed to A is Do you see what I mean? Just go straight to the language. I hope that helps. I'm not really, going to spend a lot of time not teaching the language. There are other language teachers and people that are far more proficient than myself. That's why the Telegram group will always keep you updated with the latest in the language, all right?